Hello everyone and welcome once again to Strategic Labs, the channel where we thoroughly analyze the ideas, narratives, and strategies behind political and cultural discourses. I am Matt Verne, and today we're deconstructing The Man Without a Face, the autobiography of one of the Cold War's most enigmatic figures, East German spy master Markus Wolf. At Strategic Labs, we seek to go beyond the narrative to understand reality with rigor.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the legend of the faceless man and what made him so mythical. Then, we'll explore his ideological creed, what he truly believed in. After that, we'll take a look inside the HVA, the powerful spy agency he ran. From there, we'll see how his entire world collapsed. And finally, we'll dig into his last act, his attempt to write history from the loser's perspective.
All right, let's start with the mystique. For decades, Western intelligence agencies weren't just hunting a man, they were hunting a ghost, a spy master whose very existence was almost a legend. So how is that legend built? Okay, let's dive in.
For most of the Cold War, the head of East Germany's foreign intelligence was a complete and utter mystery to the West. He was a phantom, really, a ghost in the vast machine of Cold War espionage. His memoir, which is so aptly titled The Man Without a Face, is all about pulling back that curtain on a life spent almost entirely in the shadows. And that nickname? It wasn't just for show, it was literally the bedrock of his operational security.
Just let that sink in for a second. 20 years. That is how long Markus Wolf was at the helm of one of Europe's most feared and effective spy agencies before anyone in Western intelligence even had a clue what he looked like.
It wasn't until 1979 that a high-level defector finally broke the spell, putting a face to the name and ending one of the longest-running mysteries in intelligence history. Which of course begs the question, what was driving this phantom of the Cold War?
To really understand the man, you have to look past the spycraft and get into his ideology. You see, Wolf doesn't frame his life's work as just a job. To him, it was a deep personal commitment to a cause. He genuinely saw himself as an anti-fascist, a soldier in a generational war for what he hoped would be a better world. It was an ideal that he openly admits failed in the end, but it was one he believed in to his core.
And his worldview was really forged in the fire of his youth. His family had to flee Nazi Germany, and he grew up in the Soviet Union. So when he returned to his homeland, it was a shattered country, and he was absolutely determined to build a new socialist Germany right from the ashes.
And you know, even after the whole system he served came crashing down, Wolf makes one thing crystal clear: he stands by what he did. There are no apologies in this book. He owned his past, the good and the bad.
Okay, so belief is one thing, but action is something else entirely. What exactly was this organization that he led for so long?
Well, Wolf was the head of the HVA. That was the foreign intelligence arm of the infamous Ministry for State Security, which most of us know as the Stasi. His department was this incredibly powerful entity focused entirely on gathering intelligence outside of East Germany.
And as his book confirms, the reality of his job had all the ingredients of a classic spy thriller. We're talking hidden cameras, secret codes, false identities, the whole shebang. It was a world of deep cover operations where the stakes were, quite literally, life and death.
And boy, did they have some incredible successes. Their most notorious operation, their crown jewel, was planting an agent named Günther Guillaume right at the heart of West German power, as a top aide to Chancellor Willy Brandt. When that mole was discovered, it sent absolute shockwaves across the West and brought down an entire government.
But of course, this high-stakes world of shadows and secrets couldn't last forever. The end came, and it came swiftly, completely dismantling the state and the life's work that Wolf had dedicated himself to.
This timeline just shows you the breathtaking speed of the collapse. I mean, in less than a year, the Berlin Wall was breached, furious crowds were storming the gates of the feared Stasi headquarters, and the country he had served for his entire adult life, it just vanished. You can just feel the profound weight of that moment in his own words. Everything he had built, everything he had fought for, was literally turning to dust right in front of him. So, facing the complete dissolution of his country and the very real possibility of being hunted down in a newly unified Germany, he made a choice. He fled, back to Moscow, the very same city that had sheltered him and his family from the Nazis all those years ago. But his story doesn't quite end there. In exile and then in retirement, he took on one last mission: to write his own narrative of events. See, Wolf knew perfectly well that after any war, it's the victors who write the history books. And he simply refused to accept that fate. He was determined that his side of the story would be told.
So, when you get right down to it, his memoir is a deliberate counterattack in the war of history. It's his final move, his attempt to provide context, explain his motivations, and push back against the simple black-and-white story he saw emerging from the rubble of the wall.
And this really leaves us with a final, fascinating question about how we remember the past. When all the dust settles, we're usually left with competing stories, the triumphant narrative of the winners and the very, very different story told by the losers.
If you found this video useful and want to support the channel, don't forget to leave a like, comment your thoughts on this analysis, subscribe, and share the video so we can keep growing. I am Matt Verne, and see you in the next chapter.